Breathing. Breathing is broken down into two distinct parts: inspiration and expiration. During inspiration, the diaphragm contracts and pulls downwards, while the muscles between the ribs contract and pull upwards. This increases thoracic cavity size and decreases pressure inside. As a result, air rushes in and fills the lungs. Expiration. The diaphragm relaxes and the volume of the thoracic cavity decreases while the pressure inside increases. As a result, the lungs contract and air is forced out. Cardiovascular versus respiratory. Cardiovascular consists of the heart, blood vessels, and blood. Transports nutrients, oxygen, hormones to cells throughout the body, and removal of metabolic wastes. Respiratory. Primary organ are the lungs. Lungs carry out exchange of gases we breathe. The throat, trachea, and windpipe filter the O2 inhaled. Blood vessels, a tubular structure carrying blood through the tissues and organs. There's 3 types: vein, capillary, and arteries. Arteries carry oxygen-rich blood from the heart to the body's tissues. Capillaries connect the arteries to the veins. Veins return deoxygenated blood back to the heart to be recirculated. It is a part of the circulatory system. Mitosis versus meiosis. Mitosis. A part of the cell cycle when replicated chromosomes are separated into 2 new nuclei. Purpose is growth of new cells to replace worn-out cells. Meiosis, a special type of cell division used by sexually reproducing organisms to produce gametes. Involve 2 rounds of division that result in 4 cells with only 1 copy of each chromosome. Gametes are sex cells, sperm or eggs. The goal is to make daughter cells with exactly half the chromosomes of the starting cell. Pedigree. The ancestry of an animal, showing it to be purebred. The recorded ancestry of a person or family. A chart/diagram that shows occurrence and appearances of phenotypes and particular gene or organism and its ancestors from one generation to the next. It depicts biological relationships between an organism and its ancestors. Monohybrid. A hybrid that is heterozygous, in brackets, having inherited different forms of particular gene from each parent with respect to a specified gene. It's mating between 2 organisms with different variations, one genetic chromosome of interest, and it is also called monohybrid cross. Karyotype, the process in which cytogeneticists take photographs of chromosomes in order to determine the chromosome number and any other abnormalities. Natural selection. Theory founded by Charles Darwin talks about how animals can adapt naturally to their surroundings for better fitted survival. In quotes, survival of the fittest. There's disruptive selection, which is changes in population genetics in which extreme values for a trait are favored over intermediate values. Directional selection, a force in nature that causes a population to evolve towards one end of a trait spectrum. This is where weather impacts it. And stabilizing selection, the population changes a trait not too extreme to say in their current environment, so little changes over time. Now photosynthesis, the process of absorbing light and converting the energy into glucose. Number 1 is absorption of light. Number 2, electron transport. Number 3, generation of ATP, which is energy, and 4, conversion of CO2. Gas exchange from leaf openings. The exchange of oxygen and CO2 in the leaf occurs through pauxes called stoma. Normally, stoma open when the leaf is exposed to sunlight in the morning and closes at night. Region of cell division. Tissue name, stem, apical meristem. It contains multipotent stem cells and produces primordial organisms of a plant. I forgot what that means there. Now for diagrams. For the circulatory or the heart, on the very left side, the 3 veins there, those are the right pulmonary arteries and the right pulmonary veins. The right kind of half of the heart is called the right ventricle, and in the right ventricle there's the pulmonary valve, the opening, and there's also the right atrium. At the top, the 3 other holes is part of the aorta. At the end of the pulmonary valve is the pulmonary artery, and underneath the pulmonary artery is the pulmonary veins. These are on the left side. On the right side of the heart, there is the left ventricle, and just above that is the mitral valve. Now, in the diagram of a leaf, the top is the cuticle, and in the middle of the cuticle there is the stoma, and where the stoma is where the guard cells are. Now, just under the cuticle layer is the epidermis, so depending on the top or the bottom, obviously is upper or lower. And then the dildo-looking things are called palisade unesophyll, and the stick is a vein, and all the circles and weird looking shapes are called spongy mesophyll. For the digestive tract, at the very top we have the tongue. To the right of the tongue, above it, is the salivary glands. Just at the back of the tongue is the pharynx. The long tube going down is the esophagus. The esophagus goes to the stomach. Above the stomach, just slightly to the left, is the liver. Underneath the liver is a small little circle, is the gallbladder. The pancreas is just under the stomach. The stomach connects to the small intestine. The small intestine leads to the large intestine, and then at the end of the large intestine is the rectum, and at the very, very tip of the end of the chart we have the anus. Now, this is for mitosis versus meiosis. So some similarities. They produce new cells, and they both start with a single parent cell. Now, for differences, mitosis is 4 stages and meiosis is 8 stages. Mitosis makes 2 diploid cells, and meiosis, it has 4 haploid cells. And last but not least, mitosis is genetic variation doesn't change, and meiosis, the genetic variation increases. Now, for Punnett squares, this is going to be hard to explain. There's not much to say, but phenotypes are the words. So if you are looking at a heterozygous dominant and a recessive, for phenotypes, let's say we have 2 capitals. Say we have 2 capital T's and 2 capital B's, and the dominant traits are tall and brown eyes. If we have T, T, B, B all uppercase, that means they are tall and brown, and that means they're brown eyes, and that means that that is a one phenotype. There's one of those things, and for every one you add one, obviously. Now, for a pedigree chart example, now when it is shaded in, that means they are affected by whatever trait we're looking at. Now, we're going to use the letter A, so uppercase means affected and lowercase means not affected. Now it is either dominant or recessive, autosomal dominant or autosomal recessive. When it is dominant, that you will see every generation is affected, or every generation has somebody in the family shaded. That means it's dominant. Now, if it skips a generation, that means it is recessive. And that is the whole review.